Hello, welcome to Dog Food with Katherine Abel, the show about dogs that feeds the mind and spirit. Herb Undecker is knee-deep in black mire across the street from the church when a procession of dark sedans begins to arrive in quiet order. There have been no recent deaths, and he knows of no upcoming nuptials. The church, though not small, is picturesque in its architectural qualities and landscaping. The Formosa azaleas are in a riot of fuchsia explosion, their papery blooms so effusive that the evergreen foliage can't be seen. The church architectural style is Richardsonian Romanesque, which has been accused of brutalism, but in the South, the proper plantings can transform the most intimidating or dilapidated structure into an oasis of beauty and tranquility. Thus it is so for the not-so-small church in town. Something is always brightly blooming in staggering profusion in every season. Rather than presenting a staid impression of a military fort, the large, well-built building, due to the surrounding blanket of azalea blooms, beckons and welcomes. Herb steps out of the mire to watch the procession. There are 4 in all. He leans on his shovel and wonders what the individuals stepping out of the cars are doing. 3 to 4 descend from each car. Some go to the rear of the car to pull out silver metal suitcases which communicate industry and activity rather than solace and retreat. What are they doing over there? Herb asks himself. Not much later that day, Herb is having lunch at Italo's Italian restaurant, where he eats lunch 5 days a week and has done so for the past 20 years. It wasn't until 2 years ago he began coming on Friday's pizza night. He does not come for the pizza and does not believe anyone else knows this. Herb lives alone and is a man who possesses a good brain in his head. 44 years old and in fantastic shape due to the enjoyed physicality of his job, his daily habit of robust treks with Luke and Leia, his 2 mixed-breed dogs, who have long legs and remarkable athletic tendencies, and his natural inclination to eat in a healthy manner. If he helps his dogs eat healthily, shouldn't he follow their example? Pizza can be healthy. On Friday pizza nights at Italo's, Herb orders the margarita or the quattro formaggi. The food at Italo's is made from scratch and tastes like it. There are no canned products anywhere on any shelf. Italo brought an idea along with him when he came to the small southern town, to work with those who had a small patch of rich land, who wanted to make a contribution to humanity, who possessed a strong work ethic, and who lived within the town's corporate boundaries. Fortunately for Italo, everyone in town possessed staggering work ethics. He was able to convince those who required little convincing that a small vegetable garden or herb garden on their land could do much for themselves and others. Of course he was right. Centuries of verifiable proof backed him and convinced 20 families with small yards who lived near the restaurant. And here is Italo's now, a thriving restaurant promoting community, individuality, and serving unbelievably delicious food. It's not until his granddaughter arrives with energy, good humor, and new ideas that pizza night is instituted and is a smash hit. So much so that the restaurant could not accommodate the weekly mob, so Italo began a delivery service, which was soon delivering more than Friday night pizzas. Viviana arrived not only with her 17-year-old son Massimo, but a giant enthusiasm for life and the natural positivity which always accompanies such people. Neither Viviana or Massimo ever spoke of a husband or father, and when the townspeople recognized what a gift this woman was to her grandfather and the community, they didn't ask and even ceased all wondering. What was the point in needless reflection when the now had presented them with perfection? Viviana's enthusiasm, ready laughter, the beauty of her son, and his open respect and protectiveness toward his mother made the transition seamless. They lived above the restaurant with Italo, who was smart enough to know he needed assistance and wise enough to graciously accept the offer of it. Myrtle, Viviana and Massimo's brachycephalic miracle, came with them. Initially, Italo recoiled at the sight of the evidently ill dog. Was he supposed to allow that thing in his home? Of course he was. Shame on me, Italo thought. Yet he was unable to reach down to pet the dog, who had half of her fur missing, labored breathing, and a facial bone structure only the most non-judgmental could adore. Overbred, unloved, and neglected almost unto death, Myrtle arrived, was carried upstairs without complaint by Massimo, and Italo never looked back, and thanked God he kept his mouth shut, because Myrtle slowly became the one true love of his life. He watched with great interest as his granddaughter and great-grandson brought the suffering dog back to life. He watched from the bathroom doorway as Myrtle stoically tolerated medicated baths day after day. Watched his kin carefully clean the red, raw areas between the copious folds on her face without complaint. He watched as she struggled to breathe, her chunky body thick with infection because her body and her soul never received enough nourishment or love to fight it off. It was in one of those moments, as Myrtle was staring into the farthest corner of the bathtub, Italo realized he was destined to love this dog. He could tell that Myrtle was bred every single time she could possibly be bred. She barely glanced at him when she first arrived, so worn out from the life that had been delivered to her. She had no hope that these humans would be any different, though she should have realized something new was happening when she failed to see a wire crate anywhere on the premises. Just on the other side of 3 years old, and not much joy in life, Myrtle resigned herself to her new life, assuming her present would be a continuance of her yesterdays. The medicated baths were not comfortable. They stung, and she had to stand soaking wet for 10 minutes, which she endured with patience and downtrodden submissiveness. Her head was down. She knew it was pointless to make eye contact with humans, as they had no life in their regards. Then came the day when Italo was the assigned helper at the bath, and Massimo had to run downstairs to help his mother with a to-go order of fresh tomato sauce and a basket of squash from the Zimmerman's legendary squash garden. He was left alone with the quivering dog as she sat in the tub, cold, and she thought, forever alone. Italo couldn't look at the dog. There was so much misery in her condition and demeanor. He couldn't bear it. He is standing by the tub as guardian, but he is looking away from Myrtle, looking out of the small window where there is a leafless oriental magnolia. Leafless because the dark purple blooms cover every available space on each arching limb. He must watch the dog until her medicated shampoo time is up, but he has figured out how to watch her without watching her. Her breathing is so labored and loud, he knows exactly where she is in the bathtub without even glancing at her. She's in the farthest corner, as far away from the humans as she can get. Myrtle sighs deeply. A sigh so forlorn, so sad, that Italo cannot bear the thought of so much despair in such a small body. For a microsecond he glances down, and Myrtle's unmistakable pleading gaze shakes him to his core. The world he saw in that microsecond. Lack of confidence, hopelessness, lack of trust. The non-stop labored breathing promising a debilitating stroke or a lethal heart attack any second. Without thinking, he places his ungloved hands on the dog's face and gently wipes away any irritating moisture. He runs slim, knobby fingers in between the folds of her face, where the skin is raw with infection due to indifference and disdain. He wipes away moisture threatening to go inside her mouth. 20 minutes later, Italo is seated in his recliner with Myrtle on his lap, and it feels so natural, so right. She's covered in clean, fluffy towels while Italo carefully rubs away moisture as he rubs in love and care. 2 years later, pizza night and the deliveries are booming, and Myrtle is a stocky, joy-filled beauty. Most of her body is russet brown, though there's enough white on her face and left shoulder to give her an appearance of nobility. She looks like she's wearing an off-the-shoulder dress, and it oh so definitely becomes her. Myrtle's dogged refusal to descend or ascend the stairs prompted a lovelorn Italo to install an elevator seat next to the stairs. Though he will not admit it, though he thanks Myrtle every day, he was having difficulty regularly navigating the stairs and had been trying to think of a graceful solution when his dog arrived. Yes, Myrtle is his dog, and Viviana and Massimo happily surrendered the care of her to him, though they still shower her with time, care, and attention. Within 6 months, all wounds are fully healed, all fur regrown, and a jaunty personality began to timidly emerge. As a bonus, with proper diet and exercise, the terrifying breathing soon subsided altogether. While Viviana is in the kitchen in the mornings prepping and preparing for the day and beyond, Italo and Myrtle are riding down the staircase together to begin their daily inspections and slow-motion visitations. Italo and Myrtle have become the best marketing tool Italo's never knew they needed. The morning's first stop is always at Ruth and Billy Joyner's home. They own the local catch-all store where anything but food can be purchased, so this store gets more action than any other in town. Italo enjoys helping others, but it must be said the way he goes about it is stupendously beneficial for all involved, especially for Italo's. The Joiners' front yard receives sun all day, and once upon a time it was simply boring, rich green grass. Not anymore. The small piece of life-sustaining earth is covered in too many varieties of peppers to name, alongside and interspersed with basil, cilantro, rosemary, different parsleys, thyme, and dill. The early morning stop allows for the sharing of the fresh coffee and baked goods he always brings, voluble admiration for the remarkable growth and health of the plants, and then the best part, secret family recipes people share with Ruth and Bill in exchange for flavor-adding miracles. Italo never writes anything down, but he memorizes anything that might prove interesting served on a thick, white ceramic plate. The second stop never fails to absorb his complete attention. Hardcore, soft-touch Walter Givens, former prison warden 2 towns over, is the expert on food-producing vines. Every side of his mid-century modern brick home is covered in vines. Seasonal vines are strategically planted among one another, so something green is always showing and something nutritious is always growing. Each morning, the 2 gentlemen, Myrtle, Walt's 4 black cats, and his 2 Dalmatians, make the long circle, discussing not vegetables as everyone in town is convinced they do, but rather the much more interesting subject of available women in the area. Walt and Italo are single, but who says it has to stay that way? The walks are good exercise for the body, the mind, and for business. They're also good for the hearts of the inhabitants in the small southern town, because through gentle, inquisitive talk, it's discovered who needs help and who is thriving. An anonymous gift will be found in a mailbox or in front of a front door, and a quiet, well done will be uttered at just the right moment to just the right person. These visits of Italo's are not really business building as he thinks they are. They're people building, and that's why his business is such a success. The character of the man is admired much more than his mouth-watering food. Italo and Myrtle are in the restaurant at the back, not near the kitchen door but on the other side of the room from it. They're sitting beside the door to the back garden. There's a dog door inside the door Myrtle can use at will, but every time she rises, so does Italo. He is never away from her, ever, never. In the meantime, Myrtle, being a dog, has forgotten her past because the ever-flowing happiness of her present is no place for such remembrances. A dog gets this better than humans for some reason. They're somehow capable of releasing all negativity. They don't look back, and they don't bother with the future. Myrtle dramatically rings and shakes the sky-blue stuffed monkey while its soft, flimsy arms batter her face and shoulders like a tapotment massage. She teases Italo with it, pretending she wants him to grab it and play tug-of-war, but all she wants is the undivided attention she can always count on him to supply. However, tonight, Italo's attention is divided between multiple areas in the restaurant on this particular Friday pizza night. He's watching Viviana, wearing a royal blue dress he's never seen, as she deftly keeps the food and money flowing. He's watching Massimo come and go with a huge grin on his face every single time. Italo doesn't know if it's because he's so happy to finally drive the delivery van, or if it's because he knows his mother is up to something. Italo knows she's up to something too, as he absent-mindedly rubs Myrtle's face and face wrinkles and gives her a shoulder massage, since she's already standing up on her back feet in the proper position for it. As he delicately checks for any skin imbalances, he glances over at the booth by the window, where Herb Undecker quietly sits, waiting for a whole lot more than pizza. The discovery of the paintings is the talk of the town. Wild speculation and a calculated decision to ask no questions has everyone buzzing. The new energy is nice and fun, and everyone in town is savoring it. It's not often that something of apparently monumental importance occurs in the remote town. The official-looking cars, the mysterious equipment, the serious, efficient-looking people. It's so exciting. But what the good, kindly townspeople don't realize is that every single day something of monumental importance is happening. The town has no crime unless a drunken brawl erupts due to a heartbreaking breakup, which usually only shows up and shows out for a few minutes. No one locks their doors at night. The children can play to way past dark all over everywhere and come to no harm. There are no stray dogs or cats. There are no homeless people. Smiles are naturally and unencumbered on faces, even on those quietly puttering along on nighttime strolls. These townspeople have a lot to smile about, and so they do. Italo is watching Herb out of the corner of his eye, watching him watch his granddaughter. When Herb isn't watching Viviana, Viviana is watching him. Pizza night. He knows what pizza night really is, and if he has to have a pizza night every night for however long it takes to get these two together, so be it. Because pizza night is in reality the shy, unassuming, yet unrelenting courtship of Herb Undecker night. Viviana has been in love with Herb since the first moment she saw him, and Herb Undecker has been in love with Viviana since the first day he saw her. That was 2 years ago, and still, Herb has not made a move other than showing up every day for lunch and every Friday night to eat pizza and surreptitiously stare at Viviana. It amazes and tickles Italo, so he tickles Myrtle a little out of pure joy and is rewarded with an open-mouthed smile and adoring eyes, the same exact expression on his face and in his heart. Oh, Myrtle, if only those two would look at each other like we look at each other. The source of the military-like maneuvering is revealed the next day. To say that everyone is shocked by the unmistakable finding would be an understatement of epic proportions. The Sudan people have announced there are 10 paintings by various old masters which have been hidden in the church basement, stacked against the wall behind the netting for tennis, volleyball, basketball hoops, and ping pong. There is indeed quite the pile of netting which had successfully hidden the rolled canvases from view for who knows how long. No one has yet to see the canvases unrolled except for the Sudan people. The church staff admitted they knew nothing of the canvases. The suggestion of lie detector tests was easily rebuffed when church clergyperson LaWanda Martin said they would if everyone would, meaning only, of course, the Sudan people. The church was completed in 1877, but a heavy scouring of the records and conversations with all those living who had any connection to the church turns up nothing. No one knows anything about the canvases. The canvases are painstakingly removed with white cotton gloves and backless white paper gowns. The townspeople have no idea what the paintings look like because the Sudan people whisked them away as quickly as they legally could. The Reverend Sally McCagle watched in silence and recorded every move they made with her iPhone once LaWanda showed her how it worked. The Sudan people mistook her silence for acquiescence when actually it was a let's wait and see sort of gesture. Sally knows no one in town has the tools or requisite skills to test the canvases. The canvases are allowed to leave because they're curious and because Sally knows how to get the canvases back. She chose the quiet, contemplative life on purpose. Reared by argumentative, bloodthirsty lawyers on both sides of the family had made the good choice easy for her. But if the Sudan people were thinking about keeping the canvases, they had another thing coming. The townspeople had witnessed Sally's family in action on numerous occasions. The McCagle clan leapt at the chance to help her any way they could, to draw her back into the family business. No one could litigate contract disputes like Sally. There was a long and prolonged outcry when Sally left the family firm. If Sally was quiet, then the townspeople knew everything was going smoothly. No one worried. Sally always had their backs. During the 2-week stay of the Sedan people as they completed a preliminary examination and tally, Herb took to walking Luke and Leah around the town proper. He was more curious than most about the future of the canvases. His plumbing office and warehouse were chosen with wisdom and much thought to living. His building isn't on the main street, but 2 streets back from the main street, where there's ample parking for his 5 trucks and equipment. If the streets in front of his buildings were not there, they'd sit face to face with Italo's Italian restaurant. Behind his office and supply warehouse are open fields where acres and acres undulate peacefully for miles. The land belongs to the town and can never be sold or developed. Should someone attempt to sell or develop the breathtakingly beautiful and fertile land, the lands will be immediately returned to the scions of the family who gave the land to the town. Also, there would be a crippling fine to match the betrayal. The many undisturbed acres are for running, hiking, playing, horse riding, off-leash dog walking, and other activities which can only be enjoyed out of doors. This is where Herb usually takes Luke and Leah for their exercise and joy explosions. Leah is a long-legged black and white dog whose mama or daddy had an intimate conversation with a purebred border collie. It's all there. The wide-eyed intelligence, the uncontrollable penchant for herding. Herb's ankles know true herding when they feel it. The athleticism, the good humor, and the off-the-charts companionability quotient. Herb's sister runs an animal sanctuary 2 states away. When families are ready to add a 4-legged addition, they go see her. She always has plenty, both purebred and pure joys. Luke may or may not be Leah's brother. He's as tall as she is, but has a tight, short, solid brown coat that rarely sheds. When it gets cold, Luke wears coats, sweaters, jackets, and vests. He's long-legged like Leah and possesses the same herding instincts and keen intelligence. Both dogs love everyone. They love humans, they love cats, they love birds, they love dogs, they love everything and are interested in everything. They're the way they are because Herb is the way he is. During the 2 weeks the Sedan people are in town, Herb runs the dogs hard on the open land before leashing them up to stroll around town to spy on the progress of his paintings. Yes, Herb Undecker, the town plumber, is the artist who painted, rolled, and hid the 10 canvases behind the game netting in the church basement. He almost came forward when the canvases were discovered, but didn't realize their discovery until he was standing knee-deep in raw sewage across from the church. His first reaction was shock, followed by fear, followed by curiosity, followed by fantastic excitement when he saw the grave care with which the Sedan people treated his work. The only reason he put the paintings in the church basement in the first place was because he happened to be there completing the replumb, and he'd run out of hiding places at his house and the warehouse. Herb never showed his art to anyone. He'd been told early on by responsible, unimaginative, nearsighted parents that he best put the brush down if he wanted to eat. His parents never hit him, never yelled at him, and never lied to him. They had no idea where he got the notion to paint pictures of dogs, but best put it down while he still could and get on with the real things in life. So at age 8, Herb put down the paint, the canvases, and the brushes, and got on with the real things in life. But when Herb's parents died naturally, one after the other, in a matter of months, something began to happen in Herb's mind, his imagination, and his once soaring spirit. He remembers the exact start of it. He was 4 years into his highly successful plumbing career when the eyes of his creative sight were restored. 24 years old, his mediocre painting skills forgotten because surely they'd been mediocre. Surely his parents would have recognized a talent worth fighting for and then fought for it. Right? Right? He was their only child. If he'd possessed a gift for painting, surely they would have known, told him, and celebrated it. Right? The town museum boasted a painting in the old master's style that was a reputed Rembrandt. There were certainly doubts. Is it possible that a painting by Rembrandt Harmenzoon van Rijn actually hung in their 1,000-square-foot town museum? Of course it is. That's why Undecker Plumbing Company was hired to put in a new sprinkler system in the museum to safeguard the building in which the masterpiece was housed. No one could point to the exact arrival of said masterpiece, as everyone currently breathing in the town could only remember the painting had always been there. A Montrose nephew had been the one to declare it a genuine old master's, while a Hawkins niece, an amateur art historian, had declared it a Rembrandt. No Sedan people had shown up to scuttle the painting off to a metropolitan area, because 100 years ago the Sedan people didn't exist. Suffice to say that the Hawkins niece and the Montrose nephew were successfully married and welcomed many children to their loving family and the town. The Montrose family still resided in the adequate mansion on the outskirts of town, ready to leap or dissuade any unlawful development or intrusion upon the donated undulating acres. Herb was a frequent visitor because they wished to maintain the veracity and historicity of their little manse. He visited weekly to repair leaks, consult with the handyman, and talk dogs with Samuel Montrose. It was here that Herb met his first true best friend, Murray. Herb noticed the young dog on his way out of the Montrose Hawkins estate one wintry day. The air was crisp, and the sky promised snow. Freezing temperatures were expected that very night. Herb checked the aging pipes and turned on strategically located faucets so no pipes would burst. There was a speckled dog with a blocky Staffordshire Terrier head sitting huddled by the huge iron gate, as though he'd been sent to wait for Herb to arrive all along. Herb knew the dog didn't belong to the Montrose Hawkins family. No dogs are left wanting if they manage to wander onto this generous land. The family believed in treating all creatures with respect and lived out their beliefs. They were kind, gentle, and loving, but if Juniper Hawkins heard about animal abuse, it wasn't long before the animal was found, the perpetrator arrested, and counseled until he or she changed, or the townspeople became worn out with a lack of success in the process. If the perpetrator insisted upon having his or her way and stubbornly refused to confess, repent, and change, then the town acquired a town gardener and a general step and fetch it. What else was he or she to do but sit in jail all day long, doing nothing, making no contribution whatsoever? The unrepentant perpetrator was banned for life from having animals, and his or her crimes followed him or her until change was in obvious effect, no matter where the unrepentant perpetrator tried to move. Money not put to good use is money someone else ought to have. Herb opened his door to whistle the dog to him. He couldn't help but smile as the 6-month-old puppy with a gangly gait gamboled happily toward him. His smile faltered slightly when he saw how thin the dog was. When the puppy put his front paws on the running board, Herb was already reaching down for him. His smile returned full force when the dumped dog smiled that inimitable, wide-mouthed pit bull smile. Herb held the puppy in his lap, caressed him, and said, "You smile like a pit bull. You've got the head of a pit bull, but you look like no other pit bull I've ever seen. Look at that mottled coat. You've got every color there is in there. That's Catahoula leopard. Are you a Catahoula leopard cur? Half of you is. Who has those dogs around here? And your little body looks to be a perfect mashup of both breeds. You're going to be one heck of a dog, Murray. You can come live with me if you like," Herb offered hopefully. Murray, indeed a perfect blend of the Louisiana Catahoula leopard cur and the American pit bull terrier, was phenomenally intelligent and insightful. He instantly recognized a good human with a good solid mind and a true heart. As the newly acquired small white truck left the grounds of the Montrose Hawkins estate, the back of Murray the mystery dog's head could just be seen right next to that black, curly-headed mop of Herb's. And so it was for the next 15 years. In fact, Murray was with him when Herb's creative sight was restored. It was on the very same day that each gentleman accepted the sweet invite, one from the other. He was on top of the 14-foot gorilla ladder when the epiphany was on the verge of occurring. He was screwing in the last screw on the last sprinkler head when he dropped the Phillips head screwdriver. It clattered loudly against the ladder rungs, and when Herb looked down, there was Murray looking up at him, right in the path of the falling hand tool. "Watch it, Murray," he said loudly, not desiring that his dog be injured. With relief, he watched as Murray bounded away from the trajectory of the tool, but then kept on running. Herb saw the flash of fear in his eyes, and he knew his raised voice had been the cause of it. He quickly climbed down the ladder to fetch the frightened dog, as he couldn't remember if he left the alley door open or not. He need not have been concerned about Murray. Herb found the young dog next to his new truck, shivering, yet with no apparent desire to run any farther. Herb slowly approached Murray, squatted next to him, and with kind, whispered words, slowly drew the uncertain dog to him. Once close enough to pick up, Herb did just that. He took the pup in his arms and held him like a mother would hold her 6-month-old baby. He stroked him and cooed to him, told him how beautiful his pale blue eye was, while simultaneously exclaiming over the handsomeness of his other brown eye. Soon the fear was replaced with interest as Herb carried Murray back inside to show him the various art objects housed in the small museum. The last screw on the sprinkler head was securely tightened before the screwdriver slipped from his grasp. His work completed early, he had time to explore the building and its contents at his leisure. There was an original Henry Moore sculpture which looked like nothing they'd ever seen, yet its amorphous shape somehow seemed to soothe both Murray and Herb. There was a minor cubist painting by Georges Braque that carried too much conflicting information, and neither male was much impressed with the composition or the chosen colors. Here, incongruously next to it, was a painting of a stargazer lily that was colorful and cheerful. They liked that one very much. The only artwork remaining for their consideration was the alleged Rembrandt. When Herb absent-mindedly arrived in front of the painting, his attention was more on Murray, who was resting comfortably in the crook of his right arm. Herb was looking down at Murray's beautifully modeled face and noticing the jet-black fur encircling his eyes, the tan brown on his cheeks, and the white on his chest and scattered here and there with no obvious plan or reason. All of this on a background of warm cashmere gray. He moved his left-hand finger slowly over Murray's eyebrows, forehead, the top of his head, and over his splotchy ears. Herb was thinking that all these marvelous diverse colors and shapes should not work, but somehow they did. There was no discernible pattern to the markings, no repeated shapes. It was a mishmash jumble-up, and it was exquisite. Only God could do that, and do it so beautifully. The complicated coat of Murray, the saving of Murray, the holding of Murray's small, warm body, the looking into Murray's eyes, the brown and the blue, and finally the accepted safety of this homeless dog did one thing to Herb, relaxed him completely, and filled him to the brim with an admiration for all that lives. He was thinking how happy he was to be alive when he raised his eyes to the Rembrandt, and the love that covered him at last fully restored his soul to him. It was as though a million things happened at once as he gazed at the 21 by 17-inch painting of a full-grown male lion peacefully watching 2 brown rabbits. Herb noticed everything about the painting. His senses seemed to have developed superhuman insight. He could feel the painting and everything the artist intended. He could feel the lion's calm and lack of predatory intent. He could feel the happy curiosity of the 2 plump rabbits and the soul-deep tranquility each animal was experiencing at that precise moment. He rearranged Murray in his arms so both gentlemen were face to face with the masterpiece and could look at it until the entire world reached total enlightenment. He put a shaking hand to his forehead and was surprised he wasn't burning up. As he lowered his hand, he noticed it. Really noticed his hand. It was as though he was noticing the very existence of life and the pulsating, thriving, powerful energy which sustains it. Murray looked from Herb's upheld hand to his face, and he grinned, because Murray knew how Herb was seeing. Herb was seeing with dog eyes. When a dog opens his eyes every morning, all he sees is life and the celebration of it. How wonderfully, how perfectly everything fits and flows together. There's a glow around certain entities at times dogs can perceive, mostly in the spring and summertime when the plants explode with seed, bloom, and growth, and the animals leave the comfort of their winter homes to eat, play, mate, explore, watch, decide, and talk. Even certain humans glow, but Murray knows from experience that very few humans glow. He doesn't know why they all don't glow like the plants, the water, the trees, and the animals. He doesn't know, and he will never know, because Murray's brain, a dog's brain, is pure purity, and nothing will ever change this intangible composition. A dog's brain and the total lack of corruption it possesses allows dogs to know, not to sense, but to actually know the true character of every being he or she encounters. A dog's eyes see the world as it truly is, in all its glorious aliveness, its constant state of overflow, the abundance reaching out always, giving and sharing. Murray can see this, how life glows with such vibrancy that it actually glows. It is lit up to be noticed, so that the unceasing offerings can be seen, accepted, savored, and enjoyed. This is why dogs remain forever playful, trusting, hopeful, and loving. They see the strength of existence in every moment and know the loving power behind it is indomitable. There's never a reason for worry because there's nothing to worry about. As Herb and Murray looked at Herb's hand, Murray assumed Herb was seeing what he sees. And in fact he was, and he was astounded. His hand looked like a normal human hand. His hand functioned like a normal human hand. His fingers moved, bent, and stretched as he directed. But Herb saw something he never noticed before, something possibly wondrous, something possibly miraculous, something definitely otherworldly, and though it thrilled him, it also made him ask himself if something was wrong with him, with his sight, or even with his brain. He glanced down at Murray and found him looking straight into his eyes. Murray's eyes were so happy, so joyful, so expressive. Herb could feel, he could actually feel the elation his dog was generously exuding. Was that even possible? Do dogs feel elation? The thoughts were welcome and sidetracked him from the sight of the golden glow around his hand. But before he could ponder the feeling and presence of elation in dogs, his eyes were trapped by the lyrical beauty in the Rembrandt. The painting's perfection and serenity sang so loudly to him that for more than a minute Herb was convinced there was music playing which had somehow been deliberately set to the tones in the painting. As his eyes drank in the forms, the brushstrokes, and the emotional content of the picture, music beat out a serene but moving rhythm that had him swaying back and forth in front of it. When he studied the big male lion, the beat moved like a whispering drum, boom, ba-boom, boom, ba-boom, and Herb could feel the breeze blowing the lion's thick mane. He could feel the calm confidence of the powerful beast. When he leaned in closer, he could have sworn he saw the fur on the rabbits moving. It could not be possible. Yet it was, and he did not look away because it made him feel thrilled, alive, wide awake, as though he'd been gifted with a new set of eyes which revealed the undercurrents of everything, the movement of everything, and the joy in everything. Herb was overcome with a joy that takes over his heart, his lungs, his throat, his chest, his entire being, and he felt as though he was levitating. He raised his hand to steady himself and once again noticed the soft golden glow. This time, he didn't look away. He ignored the distracting but pleasing tingle because he knew if he paid any attention to it, it'd build into fear. And he knew in his guts this glow had nothing to do with fear. The glow was caused by life, by remembrance. The glow would only present herself when an individual stepped fully and willingly into his destiny. Memories of painting washed over Herb. Pristine, intricately detailed memories of holding the brushes, of choosing colors and subjects. A flash of pure pleasure caressed his mind as he recalled feelings long suppressed due to the purported irrationality of them, that they served no purpose other than time-wasting frivolity. Those feelings that made him think he was soaring in the sky with God. He left them, buried them so deep that here, as they returned in glorious slow motion, Herb felt the rise of himself. He was no longer the 8-year-old boy unsure of the path of his life. He was a full-grown, level-headed man with a work ethic that defied contempt. He recalled this feeling, and as he recalled it, he relaxed and let it happen. Let it wash over him like an experienced baker pours liquid sugar icing over a warm batch of homemade donuts. The feeling was so intense and so right, he stepped fully into it. And though his eyes were on the Rembrandt, his expanding mind was on himself, his ideas, and his gifts. He turned away from the miracle of the Rembrandt to leave, to take Murray, and to drive 3 hours south to the only art supply house he knew of that was far enough away to ensure he was the only one who knew what he was about to do. He looked down at Murray to find his hand on his little white furred chest, petting him back and forth. Murray was grinning, and Herb's hand was still glowing. Herb is standing in the almost mile-long line outside of the town museum. The event was announced with great fanfare 2 months ago. The Sedan people eventually returned with the verified old masters' paintings to exhibit them for 12 weeks, after which they would traverse the world in grand fashion, so more than 1,300 people could stand in awe of the heretofore unknown, definite proven masterpieces which have been confirmed by the utmost professional perusals and committees who determined beyond a shadow of a doubt that the 10 unique paintings were executed by none other than Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo Buonarroti, Peter Paul Rubens, Sandro Botticelli, Giovanni Battista Tiepolo, Jacopo Bassano, Paolo Uccello, Fra Angelico, Caravaggio, and amazingly, a totally verified Vermeer. The local newspaper and nearby television station have been having the time of their lives with the verified discoveries. The mystery of the ownership of the paintings is almost as interesting as their unveiling. The Sedan people make desultory investigations while taking copious notes on yellow-page legal pads in black leather foldovers. They pretend to want to know, but if they learn the identity of the true owner of the paintings, then the paintings will no longer be theirs. And of course, since no one comes forward, the Sedan people quietly usurp the property for themselves. This is solidified when the townspeople are presented with the staggering bill for the evaluations and scientific examinations requiring 100 people and almost 6 months of study. Various individuals are stationed throughout the interior and exterior of the small museum to guard, protect, thwart, and to claim. They could not quell the rustic regional celebration which occurs due to the return of the paintings to their original home, however brief their sojourn would be. There were many reasons for an organized community celebration. Real and actual reason, there'd been no organized celebrations in decades. Thankfully, Viviana, always thinking and planning on how to get Herb to ask her out, realizes that a celebration, a sort of fair, would allow her to see more of him. A fair or community celebration isn't like eating at Italo's. Here, she can approach him and talk to him as long as he wants to talk to her. She has prepared a rough draft list of questions which have nothing to do with Italian food. The theme is plumbing. She has watched videos on toilet repair and replacement, pipe installation, French drains, and videos on specific parts and tools required for work as a plumber. She has even been taking night classes to become a certified plumber's assistant. She checks her shiny, wavy dark hair in the mirror and wonders if she should wear it up. In a bun, French braid, ponytail, high or low. She's searching for an elastic band when Massimo calls to her to tell her he's ready. She's on the verge of sighing at herself when she sees her image, and then a beautiful white-toothed smile emerges, and she almost laughs out loud. He doesn't stand a chance. Look at this emerald green satin top with a tied bow for a collar. Her pink and white striped capri pants are perfect, as are her new beige strappy sandals. She's been practicing walking in them and even conquered all fear of falling on her face by running short, gung-ho sprints. She's confident as she lightly touches her barely red lips with a clear lip gloss that promises to plump and volumize upon application. Expertly, she wields the applicator wand over lips which may or may not be instantly plumper. A final quick glance, a wink at herself to bolster her plan, and she's off to get her man. Herb is standing in the mile-long queue, munching on popcorn. Viviana and Massimo passed out to the attendees. In front of him and the attendees is a small grassy field dotted with temporary tents and stands rented or constructed for the event. He sees Italo and Myrtle manning the booth for Italos. His eyes search the crowd for Viviana. Why hasn't he said anything to her? Why doesn't he ask her out? It's because she's so beautiful. He gets tongue-tied. He hesitates. He can't think of the right words. He doesn't know what to say, can't find a single word of invite. And she'd stood there in those pretty sandals with the pink painted toenails, the color matching the pink in her figure-hugging capri pants exactly. She is the most beautiful woman he has ever seen. Why can't he speak to her? Here comes Massimo, with whom he can speak without any issue. Massimo! More popcorn, Mr. Herb? No, well, yes. Say, are you going inside today? Too packed. They're letting dogs in, too? Of course they are. The paintings are all of dogs. Why wouldn't they? You've seen the paintings, Mr. Herb? Not yet. Just heard the dogs were in them. Have you seen them? No. Too packed. Right. So, want to know where my mom is? Massimo asks as diplomatically as a mischievous teenager can. What? Why would I? Oh, look, the line's moving. See you later. The line is moving, and Herb does want to see the paintings, how they decided to present them, frame them, light them. He's eager to view the work, more eager than anyone. As he moves up in line, his eyes search the crowd for pink and green and beige until he finds her. She's squatting next to her grandfather, so she has full, unimpeded access to Myrtle. Viviana loves that dog. Will she love his dogs as much when they're married? Now, why did he think that? Luke, old boy, what you doing? Leia, you look so pretty today with your bright yellow collar. We made the right call on the daisies instead of the flags. Luke, the flags look good and masculine on your collar. Now, why did he say that? When they were married. What's wrong with that thought anyhow? It sounds nice. It even sounds right. Mrs. Viviana Undecker. That has just the right ring to it. Ring. He'll have to get a proper ring for sure. Won't I, Leia? Don't you think so, Luke? Herb's fellow linemen and linewomen think nothing of him talking to his dogs. They do it all the time. Dogs are fantastic conversationalists, while their listening skills are legendary. Everyone in the line and town knows this. Why, just this morning, Ellsworth Barkley had a particularly meaningful conversation with his rat terrier Chihuahua mix. Together, they figured out how to declog the gutters without stepping 1 foot onto a ladder. Not only are dogs fabulous conversationalists and listeners, they're remarkable assistants in problem solving. Herb is standing between Jean and Wanda Histon. The three of them are calmly munching on more popcorn offered at the entrance of the museum, courtesy of Italo's. The bag is a replica of Italo's red, white, and green menus, whose design, size, and shape have never been altered. Viviana correctly thought the clever little bags would do much to bring the celebrants back to the restaurant. The 10% off coupon on the bottom of the bag will surely contribute to the trip as well. Italo is having the time of his life doing nothing at all but keeping company with Myrtle. Their day began at 9 with a neighborhood walk investigation which inevitably wound up in much appreciated sidetracking. He and Elvina Watson harvested her eggplants only to find themselves occupied in her kitchen cooking, talking, and laughing so much they had to sit down to catch their breath. Her small yard is fully fenced, allowing Myrtle and Sasha, her Springer Spaniel, the freedom to wrestle and sunbathe, or to sunbathe and wrestle. As Herb throws a piece of popcorn into his mouth, he looks over at Charlie Hutch, who's gazing at the picture in front of him. Herb can see the mild confusion on his face and wonders if he's going to say anything. He crunches the butter-rubbed kernels and watches as Charlie takes out his cell phone and swipes through his photos. He knows exactly when Charlie's confusion deepens. Herb doesn't understand how no one in the entire town can escape the reality of the paintings. He wants to turn to Charlie and say, "Yes, Charlie, that's the golden lab you loved for 12 years. And yes, that's the red ball you supplied every single time he destroyed one." And he wants to turn to Shelby Cantor, who's crying like a baby in front of the twin Yorkie painting, and ask, "Shelby, what do you think of your Yorkie twins now?" He wonders how Shelby can fail to notice the miniature plaid bows are the exact replicas of the ones he clipped to the tops of their beloved heads every single day. Have they been gone so long that you forgot that they were as magnificent as I painted them? He'd like to whisper into Shelby's reddened ear. Because Herb Undecker is the only actual old master painter in the room. He moves casually from painting to painting, enjoying the awe, both silent and vocal, his paintings are enjoying. He has no desire to rush forward to announce himself as the old master. He moves slowly, pretending he's contemplating their majesty while munching on Viviana's tasty popcorn. It is by far the best popcorn he has ever had in his life. He pauses at the back of the crowd, gathering in front of the painting of the Xoloitzcuintli. Herb remembers Zolo was by far the most difficult to paint. In keeping with the old master's style of painting, accurate attention to detail was strictly adhered to. A dog painted must look exactly like the dog being painted, just as a noblewoman in elaborate dress must have a true depiction. The old masters were artists as well as historians. The thing with Zolo was that most of his coat was truly monochromatic. That was the challenge, while the inspiration, the prompting, was the tuft of white hair on top of his head. He'd chosen a wintry background for Zolo. He's standing beside a leafless tree in front of an iced-over pond. He can't believe Whit Thompson doesn't recognize his own land. He helped Whit dig that pond when he found out his wife was pregnant with triplets. They planted the oak tree the next day. He's glad he chose the snowy background because Zolo really pops in the snow. His dark skin is completely hairless, and the white spot on his chest, shaped like Africa, makes him look regal. How many times had Whit's wife Zelda pointed that out? And why did she point it out all the time? What difference did it make? And yet, here she stands between Whit Jr., ZZ, and Brody, utterly failing to recognize her own dog. He took extra care to paint the white spot precisely as Zelda always described it, as though he and Whit were her fourth-grade geography students. But he only hears her say, "Oh my, that painting is exquisite. Children, did you know that dog breed has been in existence for over 3,000 years? Do y'all remember Zolo? He was a marvelous creature, so smart, so happy, and of course fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Who knew Leonardo da Vinci loved dogs? Because, children, I tell you, the artist who painted that dog loved dogs. Loved them. Look at the emotion conveyed in his amber eyes. Even his buck teeth, just like our Zolo, emote. Dental abnormalities are a trait in the breed, but Da Vinci has somehow managed to make him look dignified instead of ridiculous. And neither did our Zolo, did he, Whit? That's our dog, Zelda, Whit says. Yes, I know, honey, we had one just like him. But we did have one exactly like him. Look, Z. Look at his left front leg. I remember how he got that scar. Oh, Whit, this painting is old. Leonardo da Vinci did not come back from the dead just to paint Zolo and then hide the painting in our little town. Does that make any sense, darling? No, it doesn't, but nonetheless, that dog. Let's move your father along. Other people want to enjoy the picture, too. Please come along, Whit. Herb, popcorn paused on the way to his mouth, meets Whit's confused eyes and grins. He turns up the popcorn bag and informs Whit, 10% off the whole meal at Italo's. Save your bags. Whit, a man who will travel 10,000 miles for a bargain, stops thinking long enough to examine the bottom of the bag and makes up his mind immediately, because 10% is twice as much as 5%. Jewel, the Russells' Irish setter, whom they adored, will be most appreciated by Herb. The Russells moved a continent away 10 years ago, taking Jewel with them. Still, he would have loved to have seen Carmen's reaction. She loved that dog like a baby. Herb painted her against a bucolic background where there was plenty of room to roam and run. There's still a few in the room who can remember that beautiful dog. He painted a slight breeze blowing. She's caked with mud on all four legs, and her underbelly drips with it. Her pose is one of action, and other than the Tchaikovsky's Portuguese water dog, is the only picture he painted in mid-leap. Jewel is leaping across mud puddles on a country road, but her muddied fur communicates she enjoys leaping into the mud holes instead of over them. The sunlight hits her red-gold coat just right, and the glory of her being shines through. Her dark brown eyes are happy and confident. Anyone looking at the painting, noted and verified to have been painted by Peter Paul Rubens, can't help but feel everything the well-loved Irish setter is feeling. Anyone gazing upon the painting feels peace. There is no doubt this dog has a human family who care deeply for her. She is nurtured, protected, and safe. She knows who loves her and returns that love like every dog on the planet. She returns the love of her family 100-fold. Herb is so glad he got to meet Jewel and her family. The painting of Betsy is next to that of Jewel. It's a striking contrast. One is yellow, green, red, blue, white, all the colors nature uses, while Betsy's is almost completely black. Attributed and verified to be an authentic Vermeer, there are more sedan-like people standing near this painting than any other old master painting displayed, even more than the painting of Donner, verified to be a late painting of Michelangelo Buonarroti. Betsy's painting was the most challenging painting Herb ever executed. As he stands before it, munching on the last of his popcorn and folding the bag so he can use the bottom coupon later, he remembers how he battled to achieve the variety of the shades of black. He studied John Singer Sargent, Mark Rothko, and Richard Diebenkorn to learn. Though the dog and background appear black, Herb knows there are many more colors involved in achieving the luminous glow the painting radiates. He loves what this painting taught him. His talent and ability leapfrogged forward during the execution of this painting. He remembers inviting Albert Tchaikovsky for walks. Murray was a wonderful match for Betsy. Like Murray, Betsy loved to run and roughhouse. While Albert was probably the most boring human being on the planet, his choice of dog made him think the man might just have a secret life tucked away somewhere, because a Portuguese water dog is the dog for the adventurer, not for the faint of heart, who talk non-stop about the perils of styrofoam. Herb could tell that not only did Albert treasure Betsy, they were exceedingly well matched. At first glance, the Portuguese water dog is frequently mistaken for a black standard poodle, until the white on her chest or chin is noticed. These dogs are smarter than poodles, more tenacious than poodles, and stronger than poodles. And, as Murray could attest, they'll run your legs straight off. The Portuguese water dog is for the hyperactive family. That family or that individual who moves, walks, hikes, runs, camps, takes long car rides every single day. Yes, to all of the above. Get ready to move, walk, run, and camp, because this dog must have a vigorous exercise regimen, or the family or individual will be driven insane. Albert was perfect for Betsy, and she for him. His protracted campaign against the use of styrofoam meant he was always on the road investigating the disposal practices of styrofoam in the entire region. The man was relentless in his mission and had the perfect companion for his travels, play, and personality. They openly loved one another more than any dog-human relationship he'd ever witnessed. He hopes he successfully conveyed that in the painting, how cherished she was. Though various shades of black, darkest purple, green, and gray dominate the picture, he believes he portrayed the joy born from love in the dog in the water from which Betsy is just emerging. She's looking straight ahead, mouth open in a smile, tongue hanging out from her exertions. Drops of water jump and dance around her, and Herb is satisfied with his work. He has not attempted a field painting again and probably never will. Yet he might. He has to admit that Betsy is glorious. So much life and joy on her face and in her brown eyes, from whose depths issue intelligence and a sense of humor. He's delighted the painting was accurately attributed to Vermeer, because that was exactly his intention. All that dominating black seemed to make it breathe and live a life of its own. But isn't that what every Vermeer accomplishes? The painting of Alan Mabry's tricolor pit bulls, Wanda and Ellie, which was accurately attributed to Jacopo Bassano, is a work of austere beauty. Wanda and Ellie are resting beside the trunk of a recently felled tree. Ellie is sitting and leaning against the chopped trunk while Wanda is whispering something in her ear, or licking it like she always did. Wanda was constantly cleaning Ellie's ears, and Ellie loved it. He recalls Alan telling Wanda to quit until he noticed it didn't seem to bother Ellie, so he stopped ordering the cessation of the dogly act of affection, because that's what it was, an act of tenderness and care. Even in the painting, there's an expression of relaxed bliss on Ellie's face, convincing all that a tongue in her ear is a pleasure. Two more chilled, relaxed dogs he'd never met. He wishes Alan were alive to see the painting. He was a gentleman who cherished those two beautiful pit bulls. In fact, that's the obvious theme running through every calculated brushstroke on display. Love. The love the families had for their dogs, and the love and happiness the dogs gave in return for such generosity of spirit and action from their humans. He does find it curious the Sudan people failed to note the non-existence of squatty, big-headed, tricolor pit bulls during the Renaissance. Herb stands in front of the next to last of his paintings that are being celebrated by the entire world. He takes his time here, because this painting makes him smile. It's full of play and silliness. Herb thinks most of Botticelli's paintings convey a note of frivolity. They portray seriousness to an exaggerated degree, and the positioning and gestures of his subjects is always slightly absurd. Who stands like that? Holds a baby like that? Gestures to the sky like that? Or is that ridiculously serious? Herb has always thought Botticelli was poking fun at the drive and plans of man. Yet his paintings are so luminous and thoughtful, no one would ever suspect or even dare to mention sarcasm or humor. Twyla Morgan's full-blooded Pomeranian looks like a poof among a field of poofs. Dandy, tan, white, and freshly coiffed to an exaggerated degree, stands with alertness in between hundreds of white, ephemeral dandelion seed heads. It is a field of poof, 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 poof. Dandy's coat is so poofed out, her eyes seem to have an epicanthic slant. Of course, she is not Japanese, but every viewer of the painting is questioning when Botticelli sojourned in Japan, and who knew Pomeranians originated from Japan and not Pomerania. The Sudan people refrain from commenting, and so does Herb. Herb knows the field isn't a field at all, but his next-door neighbor's small front yard where she diligently cultivates 30 species of the dandelion plant. How many times had he seen Dandy standing among the plants, sharing her poofiness with which must be her cousins. He overhears Jim Wedgeworth identifying the dandelions in the painting as the Japanese white dandelion, and says nothing. They could have been Japanese white dandelions for all he knows. The variety is irrelevant. What is important to the composition is the effusive poofiness of every subject in the painting. Dandy looks like she's in a living fairy tale. Botticelli used bright colors. His golds shone like the sun, and that's just what Herb did in this picture. He painted Dandy with gold tones. She is shiny clean and perfect, not one hair out of place. Twyla took her to the groomer every Friday morning at 9 o'clock without fail. She had a standing appointment and never called to cancel. Herb glances at her now and can't believe she doesn't recognize her dog. When she turns away from the painting, there are tears in her eyes. Seeing her neighbor, she says to him, "Herb, that dog looks just like my precious Dandy. Do you remember her? She was such a dear, and I still have a front lawn full of varieties of dandelions. Oh, Herb, that is the loveliest painting I've ever seen. I wish it could be mine, but I'm glad it will belong to everyone. I always know where to find it, don't I?" Just think, Botticelli painting Pomeranians and dandelions. How wonderfully practical and sublime. Maybe I can get a poster, she murmurs to no one as she walks away, thinking about her shared life with Dandy. Herb doesn't reply to Twyla because he correctly realizes she's talking to herself and the sweet memories of her Dandy. It's on the tip of his tongue to say he can paint one for her if she'd like, but he catches himself. He hasn't painted in the Renaissance style for years. He's carefully folding and refolding his empty popcorn bag. He is procrastinating. The painting he has saved for last is less than 10 feet from him, but he can't bring himself to look at it just yet. Out of one of the large windows, he watches Viviana move with elegance and generosity from individual to individual, from group to group, making people feel wanted and welcome becomes second nature to her. He has never seen her cross or respond in a rude manner. He has watched her for hours. He watches her with his eyes and in the reflection of the window beside his regular booth at Italo's. He watches her walk Myrtle, listen to Massimo, talk on the phone to customers, write orders with the telephoner against her shoulder and ear, her ponytail bobbing as she turns to hand deliver a fresh-baked pizza to a grateful, hungry patron. He could watch her for the rest of his life. So why doesn't he? 4 words asked and accepted, and he can. Instead, he turns to face the painting and instantly chokes up. If anyone attempts to talk to him, he knows he will cry. He cried when he painted it, and he cried when he finally finished it. It is a painting in the style of Giovanni Battista Tiepolo, and it is overflowing with Murray's. Herb painted it 2 months after Murray's passing because he couldn't forget the dog who loved him as much as he loved in return. Murray is floating across the center of the painting, moving slowly from one bib cloud to another. The painting is in the shape of an oval and appears to have been intended for use and decoration as a ceiling panel. Tiepolo is so renowned for ceiling paintings, there's a color named after him, Tiepolo blue. There's not just one Murray in the painting. There are countless Murrays in the painting. Herb looks at him sleeping, exactly like he used to sleep. There he is riding a cloud with his tongue hanging out, just like he did when they went for long rides on any road available. There he is sitting up, with his favorite toy in his mouth, an old hat that no longer has any discernible shape. That dog, Murray. He feels the tears readying for an epic fall, but turns away before they can. He squats low and hugs Luke and Leia to him. No dog ever means more to him than any other, because when they're in his life, they always mean the world to him. Luke and Leia return the hug as they always do, with strong sincerity, pulling away only when Herb does. The time has come. Today can be the day. The high moods of the people at the celebration raise his mood. Their vocal appreciation of his painterly skills compel him to share it with everyone. He will. He must. He's painting a massive triptych he'll show Viviana this evening or tomorrow, whenever she desires. But when she sees it, she'll be standing beside him as his future wife. Won't she? Will she? He'll never know if he doesn't ask. There she goes, looking so pretty and charming. No, here she comes, heading right toward him. His first instinct is to wave and turn away, but he stills himself, and he could swear his dogs are leaning harder on him than usual, as though they're trying to hold him in place, keep him right where he is. Italo is watching the scene from his booth. Two finer human beings he has never met. So perfectly suited one to the other, it was surely inevitable they'd eventually find one another. He can tell Viviana is nervous. She keeps touching the cuff on her sleeve. Calm down, baby. You got this. That man is so in love with you, he's speechless. You got to help him out. He doesn't know what to say, but be wise like every good woman. Guide him where you know he wants to go, and get him to do what you know he wants to do in his heart. Myrtle, look at them just standing there. Not a word. Myrtle is watching the two would-be lovers and understands every word Italo says. They are so on the same page they could be the exact same person. That's how in sync they are. They read each other's thoughts. She does what he suggests because she knows, like him, Herb and Viviana are made for each other. Business is booming like never before at Italo's. The food is still amazing, but it's the art that's now the main draw. A giant wall-hugging triptych covers the wall everybody sees when they enter, and no one, not ever, has not stopped dead in their tracks when they lay eyes on it. It calls to the human soul, every human soul, the truck driver, the teacher, the battered woman, the drug addict, the kindergartner, the retired history professor, the janitor, the maid, the CEO, the actor, the model, even the plumber. It exudes life and love. Love for life. Love for humanity, for animals, for nature, for that which brings wide-awake thought and joy to the mind and heart. There are people in it, but people like they've never been painted before. There are dogs in it, but dogs like they've never been painted before. And there is nature in it, but nature as she has never been contemplated before. The other walls are covered and constantly recovered with Herb's paintings. As soon as a painting is displayed, the gentle tug-of-war begins between too many buyers, both online and in person. Herb helps out Massimo with the plumbing business whenever he can. That Massimo, a true entrepreneur if ever one existed, organized, hungry, and fully supported by all who know him. Businesses seem to constantly sprout and grow from his generous and capable fingertips. It doesn't hurt that a pretty blonde wife who loves him stands by his side during the day and lies next to him each night, supporting and loving the man as only the noble wife knows how to do. Herb and Viviana live over the restaurant. Italo and Myrtle are no longer there. They're buried beside one another in a cemetery lined on all sides with black-leaf crepe myrtles. Taking their much-missed places are twin boys who are handfuls, who are loved, who are encouraged every single day to follow their heart's desires rather than the clouded vision of someone who somehow forgot how to dream. This has been Dog Food with Katherine Abel. Thank you very, very much for listening.